Hello, this is Christopher Tarantola. Welcome back. We're going to be playing Kerbal Space Program, Reach for the Stars. Actually, my save file is Go for the Stars. It's kind of the same thing. Close enough, right? Okay, so let's check out what we got going on here. Do a low resolution scan of Kerbin, science data from space around Kerbin, a test in flight, test at the launch site, fly by the moon, and a radial mount drogue chute in flight over Kerbin. Okay, so let's see, what do we have anything in orbit or space right now? I don't think I've launched any satellites yet, so I have 0. I don't even have any debris in space right now. Okay, so we're starting everything from scratch. I think we just made it to orbit and got some science in the last episode. This is like a week. It's been like a week since I played that, so. Okay, so the first one that I'm going to go for is I'm going to go for these 2 tests at the launch site because those are the obvious ones. So a flea and a Space-Y SRB. Okay, so let's go to engines, the flea, and which Space-Y SRB is it? 05S, 05S, 06R, 09R, actually this one. Okay, I'm gonna just take all the fuel out. Stick that on there. And get a communicatron. And launch. Doing a little bit of the space, the science grind. But, you know, once you get into the middle and late games, you can start really doing some cool stuff. So we're just going to work our way up there. That's what y'all are going to do, and so that's what I'm going to do. Alright, here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. And 2 contracts completed. Bam and bam. Thank you, ma'am. Cover that vessel, and we'll start moving on. Alright. Any available that I want to take on before I really start getting into it? Parachute and flight over Kerbin. Yeah, I don't want to do that one. I just did that. I'm pretty sure I literally just did that. I'm not going to do it again. Get a low resolution scan of Minimus and the moon. I've got to do those anyway. So, alright. We got 51. I don't know where my science is. We are at the 90 level mark, so that ain't going to do us any good. Yeah, I'm from Texas, so I say ain't. That's right. Yeehaw, ride that rocket. Alright. Create a new thing here. So now we're going to get science data from space. We're going to test these parachutes out. I don't know if we're ready to fly by the moon yet or not. Let's see. I'm not going to do the low resolution scans yet. That's going to require a satellite, and I want to get a couple more things before I start setting satellites up. I need to get the ability to put solar panels on my satellites, and I don't have those yet, and I do have the batteries. So once I get solar panels on my satellites, then I'll start sending satellites up into orbit. Before then, it just doesn't make sense. They're only going to last for so long, and it's just not worth it. Okay, so we're going to start with this guy. That was a little loud for me. Okay, So I'm just gonna fast forward through this stuff. Y'all see me put these rocket ships together at this point. So I'm just gonna fast forward through it, and I'll see you out on the launch pad. Okay, and we are back. So, I have 2 radial SRBs here. Then I have 2 of the large fuel tanks, followed by a swivel. That'll be our second stage. First stage will be just this little tank with a little poodle, I think it's called. And then we have some batteries and some life support. And here we got these radial parachutes just for the heck of having them. We're going to test these out, and we're going to test that out. We got a communicatron in there. We have our Kerbal engineer system on board, so we should be good to go. Valentina is piloting. Let's see how she's doing up in there. Looks like she's doing great. Okay, not the best view, but whatever. Okay, and I'll turn back off. We're going to T for SAS, Z for full throttle, and we're off. Now our starting thruster weight is just under 1.2. We don't want to go too fast, just fast enough, right? I didn't put any fins on here. That might cause issues, but I am at least managing my fuel so that we don't have stability issues. Hopefully this will work. We're going to wait till we get to at least 50 meters per second here. We also typically wait till we get to at least 500 meters there. So we've reached 50, and we're just now going to get to 500. So I'm just going to lightly tap the D key, just to slightly start our gravity turn. At some point, I'm going to also start fast forwarding through these launches. But, you know, launching and getting into orbit can be tricky, as it was obvious with my first couple attempts in the series. But once you get the hang of it, it becomes second nature to you. But, you know, it can be quite a bit harder, particularly if you don't have a Kerbal engineer. But you can go by just these 2 numbers, but I also like to go by my Apsis height here. And so, you know, we're reaching about 3,000, so I start, we're starting to twist here because we don't have our fins, but I'm going to start pulling my gravity turn now, not too quickly, but, you know, right here at about 5,000 is about right for our prograde vector. We need to keep an eye on our solid fuel, which is starting to run out. So we want to be as close to prograde as possible when that happens, so that when we release these, they don't go flying in a direction that we don't want and hit our aircraft, our spacecraft. So I'm going to just try and stay on prograde vector. We're actually probably going to make it all the way to 10 kilometers before we release those. And I'm having to do some pretty active flying just to keep this thing flying the way I'd like it. I'm not going to be exactly on the elevation I'd like, but we'll do fine. So now I really need to keep an eye on the fuel just so that I can turn this on going to stay on this 45-degree mark until we get to 20,000 or to 20 kilometers. Try to keep it straight. And apoapsis is looking pretty good. You typically, for your thruster weight, it's going to be just under or just about twice as much in an ideal situation, so I'm not doing quite as well as I would like right now. So I'm only pushing 3,000 kilometers more than I have here, which is a little bit low. I mean, that's okay. I think we'll still be alright, but it's not quite as good as my typical. I'm talking about when we start getting into the 2.5 meter diameter. Start having other instances. Now I'm at 20,000, so I'm going to start my roll. I'm only going to go up to my prograde vector. I'm not going to go, and I might not even go that far. I'm only going to go to 2 or 3 hash marks down, and then I'm going to start looking at my apoapsis. Now, when things are doubled, I'm usually at 40 here, and so honestly, I'm going to stay here for quite a while. I need to go ahead and turn this on. I'm actually worried about getting into orbit. It's something I might go ahead and reduce my gravity turn a little bit just to make sure I'm making it into space, because apoapsis is pretty low compared to my actual altitude. Sorry. My apoapsis is low compared to my altitude. Usually it's about double, and today, or this flight, it's not. So now I'm getting to 40, so now I can start my roll again. When this gets to about 50, 55, then I'll bring it to the horizon. You know, I don't want to fight the atmosphere too much, because that's just wasting delta V. Okay, now we're at 50, so I'm going to start going towards the horizon. I should arrive at the horizon right around 55 apoapsis. Alright, so we're at 55 apoapsis. I'm not quite at the horizon, but I'm getting there. Okay, so now I'm at the horizon. And we're at 57. Once this gets to, I'm going to say 80,000, 80 kilometers up, the apoapsis that is, then I will turn my engine off and then click prograde and try and keep it appropriate. So if you notice, my per axis is really increasing because it's a negative number. Negative number means it's going, the apoapsis is below the surface of, or the sea level of Kerbal. And as you can see, that is starting to rise up, which means my flight is flattening out now. I just reached 80 kilometers, so I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to manually turn my ship to apoapsis, and then I'm going to click on the prograde vector so that Valentina can just keep it there for me. Then I'm going to go to my map view, and normally if I had the ability, I would go ahead and set up my maneuver node to circularize my orbit. I don't have those at the moment, so I'm just going to have to manually do that. So I'm just going to wait till I'm about right, or so. And as I get up there, then I'll just fire in the prograde vector, and that ought to circularize my orbit. I'm going at 2,000 meters per second right now, so I'm guessing I'm going to need about, I don't know, 400 or 500 delta V. So that's going to finish this stage up and go a little bit into my next stage, which is perfectly fine. This is not designed to be much more than just an orbital flight, just so that I can honestly test some of these things out for my contracts. So let's check out our contracts just to double check, make sure we got to get everything. So we're going to need some science, and we can do that really simply by just taking a crew report and sending it off. Whether it actually gives us additional science or not, it should give us, oh, but we're not in orbit yet. Oh, I'm sorry. We're not in the space yet. That was just flying high. So, my bad. My bad there. Jumping the gun there a little bit. So I'm going to time warp a little bit. Okay. So now we're in space. So now let's try that again. Crew report. Send it off. Alright, and that gives us science data from space around Kerbal. Even though we didn't actually get any new science, it is technically science data. So that works. Okay. We'll delete that. And, you know, we need to pay attention. Our apoapsis shrunk to about 79.8 because of atmospheric drag. And so as we start approaching, probably when we get to about 78.5, I'll start firing along the prograde vector just to make orbit. And I'm going to keep it in this view. I did that a little bit later than I wanted to, but that's okay, because my apoapsis started pushing away from me. So that tells me I did it too soon. So I'm going to wait a little bit longer. My apoapsis is at 87 now, 80,007. So I'm going to wait till I'm at like 80,005. 80,001, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, so that's at 73, this is at 86, that's good enough. It's not perfectly circular, most orbits rarely are, that's actually pretty darn straight for real life. I can usually get those like pretty exact, the orbits, but that's usually also when I'm using maneuver nodes, and I have my maneuver node editor and everything, so that's pretty good for not just doing it on the fly like this. So I'm gonna go back. That's really, we didn't even, honestly, didn't even really need to do that, because we're just, our next step is just to go right back into the atmosphere. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn this thing to retrograde. I'm gonna let Valentina do that. Do I have any more? I have 14 meters per second delta V left in this stage. So as soon as Valentina finishes her pendulum back into getting into retrograde, I'm actually going to do a little trick, and I'm going to warp, and that instantly put this ship on rail, so it stopped the physics. There is a mod that you can get that will change that to where you have a perpetual motion even when on rails. That can be good for realism, because in real life, you know, things don't stop just because you pressed a key to time warp. And so that can be good if you want to replicate things like the Juno mission, which is rotating as the whole spacecraft rotates to keep its attitude stable. In fact, they I believe they are at 2 RPM or thereabouts, and then they sped it up to 5 RPM when they did JOI, Jupiter Orbital Insertion, and then they slowed it back down to 2, and they actually changed the attitude while they were spinning, which is quite a bit more complicated than what you do here in Kerbal Space Program, where you're just pushing one direction or another, because your directions are always changing. So That's quite a bit more engineering and computer know-how than what you have to have here in Kerbal Space Program. So there are ways to replicate that in KSP with mods, and I'm sure people have done that. So go look for that on YouTube or whatever and check it out. I might try and find some and stick them in the description or something. But you know, honestly, don't hold your breath on that. Okay, so we're just kind of rolling. I'm going to finish that stage out. And you notice one of the things that Valentina is moving it along to keep it on retrograde. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to Stability Assist, and it just tells you to keep it where it is. And you notice you lose all of that motion. And that motion, as little as it might be, it actually reduces your... So now we're going, or perhaps this is back in the atmosphere. It actually, and we're right back to probably where we would have been before our orbital insertion burn. So we just performed that just for the sake of practice. That's okay. And we'll probably end up on this continent here. So we'll actually hopefully end up in a new biome and maybe plant a flag or something. I don't know. I don't know if I can plant flags yet. But in any case, what was I saying? Oh, I totally lost my train of thought. Sorry guys, totally lost my train of thought. So we're just going to come back into the atmosphere. I'm going to put her back on retrograde while we're not firing. Oh, all that movement, it makes you less efficient, and you'll actually lose delta V to all that maneuvering. And so that's why I keep it on Stability Assist when you see that going on. It's particularly when you're going into the atmosphere. I'm going to go up a little bit. I'm going to keep an eye on my vertical and horizontal speeds here. Fire. So actually, I'm going to vertical speed to reduce. So that way I'm as shallow as I can. I'm also reducing horizontal speed. I'm trying to keep this as flat as I can instead of being a high arc, while also reducing my speed. And that looks pretty good. And so we're going to come down probably right on top of these mountains, so we probably will get a new biome. And that'll be good for like temperature. See? Yeah, so we'll go ahead and send that back. That's some good science there. Now that is completely unrealistic. You would never use something like that while in the atmosphere, unless you are purposefully trying to drag. But then that would induce a torque that KSP does not recognize, and it would tend to the spaceship to go in this. It would tend the spaceship to go like that, and then it would go back, because then it would have the atmosphere dragging, so you'd have quite a jiggle, and then that thing would probably just break off. But anyway, so all of that electric charge and supplies, not necessary, but it's good to have this, because we'll probably use this same model, just with increased delta V, to fly by the moon at some point. So I'm going to go ahead and time warp, and I will see you down on Kerbal, planet side. that was fun. As you noticed, I got my 2 contracts. So I had my contracts plus window up here, and I waited until the everything turned green, and then I hit it. If I would have jumped the gun, then I wouldn't have gotten I wouldn't have been going the right speed. I was going too fast, and I would not have achieved my contracts, which can be frustrating. So you want to make sure you do that. We are just gently falling. I am still under time warp, which is why everything looks so quick and jiggery. But Valentina's having a great time. And I'm going to go ahead and kill my warp. We're at 40 meters, very close. And Valentina looks like she's as comfortable as she could be. We're going less than 5 meters per second here. And we hit, and we're good. And that's it. We are planet bound. Let's go ahead and EVA. I didn't check to see what biome we're in over Kerbin's Highland. So that's a new biome. And so we're going to store that experiment. We're going to jump off. And we're going to come down. There we go, Valentina. And we're going to do another EVA report. I don't think a spacesuit was entirely necessary to get here, was it? No, but it was necessary for earlier parts of the flight. So it's not always about the destination, Val. It's also about the journey, right? You've heard that before, right, Val? Log temperature can only externally be done by a scientist, so we're just going to try and... Can we climb this thing? Can we jump up and... At least she's having fun doing it. Alright, Val, come on. We want to jump. Nav. Jump. Nope. I'm just gonna recover her, and then I'll recover the vessel separately. Should have logged the temperature before I AVA'd, but oh well. So I'm going to go into here to do my, to see, we got the debris here. I'm going to go ahead and delete that, terminate it. This will destroy the vessel, killing all crew in it. Are you sure you want to continue? Well, there's no crew in it. It's an empty stage, so yes. Now here, since it's landed on Kerbal, I have the opportunity to recover it, so I'm just going to click recover, yes. And I got an extra little bit of science, some funds, good to go. Okay, I'm going to exit out of this. Alright, we got 90 science, so we've just barely earned the opportunity to get an additional thing. Now, if we go to electrics here, will it give us solar panels? Yes, we'll get photovoltaic panels, and we'll get the Probodon OKTO, which will give us a little bit extra capability, and that, my friends, will get us into launching satellites. So I'm definitely going to go for that. That's definitely our next step. All these are important, but that's definitely our next step. Okay, so I wonder if we could also upgrade the astronaut complex, because that allows us to perform EVAs and place flags. So I'm going to upgrade that. So the next time we do a manned or a Kerbal or occupied, I don't know, space flight, whatever you would call it. I know Scott Manley has gone through this before, but I can't remember what we agreed that the final thing would be. We can go ahead and get a little bit of extra by placing flags and taking surface samples. and also getting EVA reports in space. That would be nice. So, need to fly by the moon and do a couple low resolution scans. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to launch our first low resolution scan satellite. And it's also going to act as a comm relay once it's finished with that. If we put enough delta V on it, we can scan multiple bodies, because it needs about, I think, 8,000-9,000 tend to be safe to go ahead and get to Minimus. So what we can do is we can get it to Minimus, scan Minimus, and then we can send it back into Kerbal and scan Kerbal as well. Now the thing about it is, to scan things, you need to be in a polar orbit. And those, if you're not on that inclination to begin with, can be quite difficult. So I'm not sure if I want to just go straight to Kerbal and then try and do Minimus and the moon in one round, and use 2 spacecraft to kill 3 stones, or if I wanted, yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. So Kinship 3, that's saved. We're going to do a new one, and we're going to start with the Providine OKTO, which popped up way down here. So we're going to go down, going to zoom in, and so now we're doing satellite. So I'm not going to fast forward through this rocket build, at least not the first part of it. Once I get to the rocket part of it, I might, but so we're going to start, and that's going to be our core always. And then we're going to go to science, and we're always going to need to have the Kerbal engineering system. Actually, that's not true. Once you start getting probes that are advanced enough, the Kerbal engineering system will be included inside of them, and so you won't have to put this little part on in order to take advantage of the Kerbal engineering system. And then I'm going to put this on here. I'm going to put it over here to the side. Actually, I want it centered, right? And then I'm gonna, and that's because I have this part on here and I don't want it attached to that part. I want it attached to that part. And so I'm gonna just go over here to my move, my displace, and turn my snap off and move it over until it looks like it's just about even. And these nice white and reds actually give you a perfect little thing. Then I'm gonna go ahead and right click and extend. The reason I'm going to do that is so that when I put my other things on there, I know that they're not going to run into it, because while that's not going to actually create issues in game, I'd like to make it as realistic as possible in that sense. We always, even if it doesn't call for it, even if there doesn't seem to be any good reason for it, we are going to always, if I can, there we go. We're always going to put a thermometer on there, and we're always going to put an ABS device on there. And the reason for that is this. There are always going to be contracts to get science data from the space around and then fill in the blank. And if these we're going to just park those in orbit once we're done with the scan part of it, and we can always go back to them and right click, do the thermometer, and then send in that data, and we get the contract without actually having to send us another spacecraft up there. So we can mine science and reduce our science grind by just a little bit by making sure that we have those things on there. We also need to go to our utility, and these are a little bit large for this kind of a satellite, so we're just going to stick with these photovoltaic panels. And we're just gonna literally do 8 of them right there, like that, right? Okay. Now, normally what I would do, oh, I got this. I got the rechargeable battery bank, so I'm gonna stick that and that on there. And then I also need, and see that's clipping a little bit. That's not gonna be a big deal. I know I opened this up so I wouldn't have clipping, but at some point it's unavoidable. Now what I can do, just for the sake of my own self, is I can stick it on there like this, right? And that can be considered pretty realistic. Now our thermometer is kind of hidden in there, and so I might want to move that, because that's almost going to be impossible to be able to right click on take a reading from. So I'm just going to stick it right there. We also need to make sure we always have Communicatron. But we also want to, I always put these on there no matter what, just because it gives you local communication capability. And I'm just going to stick it like right there like that, just for the sake of saying it's a little bit more aerodynamic. I could even have brought it in more, but that's good enough. And then one of these Communicatron, I just need the one. Nope, not 3, 1. You can do 2, but I'm just going to do the 1, and then when that opens up, it'd be like that. And that's kind of funky. I don't know. When we put our let's see. What does this look like? See, that's big. What I can do is I can go to my procedural, hopefully, and can we reduce the diameter? Yeah, so we can reduce the diameter here. And we don't have the small little engines. That's going to create miniaturization, but we do have these little liquid fuel engines, which are ginormous compared to our craft, right? The other thing that we could do is we could just make this cone, and then stick that on there like that. And look, that gives us 2,000 delta V because we're moving so little mass in our satellite. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that back to a normal orientation, and I'm just going to stick that on there because there's going to be no need to stage in between them because we're not bringing this back. And so once this fuel runs out, that satellite's dead in the water anyway, and so there's no need to decouple. There's no need to add a decoupler there. All right, and so what I think I'm going to do here, as I'm thinking about it, is I'm actually going to turn it this way. I'm still going to have 2 like that, and then I'm going to go ahead and retract this, and that'll retract back in. And so that's our little satellite. Now, do we have so we have all these fairings, but we don't have a fairing base to go with them. That's a mod that is incomplete, so those don't really count. So we're looking for the in-house fairings, which we don't have yet. So we're just going to have to go up into space like this, which is not ideal. Normally I would like to put a decoupler on there, and then I'll put a fairing around it just to make it aerodynamically sound. We're not going to be able to do that, so we're just going to have to deal with what we got, and that's okay at the beginning. So then the next step is going to be to go ahead and put a decoupler on there. And I also want to change the texture of this to be something like that. Seems realistic, right? And so that's 2,000. I'm gonna put another one of these Terrier engines on there, just for the sake of having enough fuel to maybe go ahead and do a second body. That's 4,000 delta V right there, and the same amount of mass that one of our normal spaceships would normally take. And I have extra battery power. I have the ability to get electric charge from the photovoltaics, and yeah, so that's good. At this point, y'all seen this, so I'm just going to fast forward through this. So I'll see you on the launch pad. And I think I'm going to go ahead and cut it there. Next episode, we will go into a polar orbit and start mapping Kerbal. Thanks for watching as always, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.